spoken with every official in Ohio, and I will be out there tomorrow.
He's been to Ohio many times before during his administration, so it's not unusual for him to go there.
Are there any plans for President Biden to visit East Palestine?
I don't have anything to share on a planned visit for the president to Ohio.
Well, I said in March that you would go to East Palestine, Ohio. You came here. How come you haven't gone to East Palestine yet?
Well, I haven't had the occasion to go to East Palestine. There's a lot going on.
Well, apparently now Biden is trying to right his wrongs during an election year. It's super transparent and kind of embarrassing, but nonetheless, 1 year after a toxic train derailment threw East Palestine, Ohio into a complete crisis, President Joe Biden has finally decided to visit the community. Now, the derailment polluted the community's air and water, and also, of course, forced Americans out of their homes for their own safety. Now, Biden's visit, in my opinion, is an obvious move to patch things up ahead of the presidential election, especially as many saw his earlier refusal to visit the town as a major foible. Now, in a statement, the White House said the following. In February, President Biden will travel to East Palestine, Ohio, to meet with residents impacted by the Norfolk Southern train derailment and assess the progress that his administration has helped deliver in coordination with state and local leaders to protect the community and hold Norfolk Southern accountable. Now, no date was given for Biden's visit, but it does, I guess, fulfill his pledge to visit the town a year after the derailment happened. It's gonna be like for the 1 year anniversary of that tragic derailment. But many of whom have suffered from the consequences of that derailment are pretty irritated with Biden. I mean, they suffered from rashes, breathing problems, and other ailments. They experienced the value of the homes they own declining in value because of the pollution in the area as a result of that train derailment. Fearing long-term health effects, the town of 4,700 people has pressed for accountability, help, and the truth. And here's a reminder of just how serious the issue was last year. You know, the point in time when Biden really should have visited. Let's watch.
Tonight, emergency crews desperately trying to get control of a potentially deadly situation with a controlled detonation. For 3 days, warning residents the burning wreckage of a freight train could explode, sending shrapnel and toxic fumes a mile in every direction over a rural Ohio community. Friday night, as many as 50 of the train's 150 cars derailed en route from Illinois to Pennsylvania. Today, the response focused on 5 cars carrying hundreds of thousands of pounds of vinyl chloride used to make PVC pipes and vehicle upholstery, and also linked to increased risk of cancer, according to the CDC.
And the Biden administration wants to tout what they did in response to that train derailment. We're gonna get into the details of that and whether you think they deserve any credit. But before we do, I want to bring you in, John, because I don't know, maybe I'm being a little unfair to Biden. I just felt like it was important for him to visit as that crisis was unfolding.
You mean like within a year? That seems extreme. First of all, I am surprised that the right is so worried about what happened there. All of those negative health effects are per the CDC, which I've been told for years we're not supposed to trust anyway. So maybe it's all fine. Maybe breathe it in, boys. Vinyl chloride's back on the menu. I don't know. Yes, but jokes aside, he waited way too long. His excuses didn't make sense and weren't even presented as if they were supposed to. There's a lot going on. I would hope so. You're president. It's about prioritizing. And really, by the way, I think there's a little bit of nuance here in that when, like for instance, I saw on Fox News, their coverage of this was East Palestine resident says he's only coming because it's the election, which is totally true. But also, if he had gone last year, it would also have only really been because of politics. Oh, and by the way, Donald Trump did go purely for politics.
Of course,
he doesn't care about it. He's not going to do anything about it.
But it is good optics, John.
Well,
right?
but also it's a signal that you're prioritizing it. If you take something off your schedule to go there, that gives me reason to believe that maybe you're doing other things too. And if you're not willing to even go, well then what faith do I have? I mean, you sent Buttigieg, I guess. I suppose that's something.
Yeah.
But yeah, people should be mad.
Look, I don't know if the community in East Palestine is gonna see it this way. And I'm not living in that community, so who cares what I think? But in terms of optics, I'm gonna tell you what I think, okay? When Biden is willing to drop everything and go visit Israel, but he couldn't be bothered to go visit Americans suffering from a crisis that should have been prevented through regulations of the rail industry. It's going to look real bad, and what exacerbates that is the fact that Trump visited East Palestine when the derailment happened.
Yeah.
He bought McDonald's for the first responders and the firefighters.
That was a big gesture.
That was, you might, look, I'm not an idiot, okay? I know what Trump is really about policy-wise. But he understands marketing and he understands optics, and that was a smart move on his behalf. It was a dumb move, in my opinion, on Biden to not visit, and then on top of it, to then decide to visit a year later when it's clearly an election year. Everyone knows why he's visiting now.
And also, so now your excuse looks even worse because you couldn't go last year because you were so busy, passing all that legislation you passed. Right now, we're like kind of in a war with Yemen. We might soon be in a war with Iran. You're also campaigning for re-election. Why aren't you busier right now? Why were you busier last year than you are right now? You have legitimate reasons to not be able to go this year. So they obviously in the first month should have sent him there, even if they didn't think initially that they needed to. The news coverage was scathing. Maybe he thought once Trump went, now if I go, it'll look like I'm only going because of that. But all the more reason to just go. It was a horrendous tragedy. And he should have been there.
It was absolutely a tragedy. And look, he wants to tout what the Biden administration did in response to the derailment to basically hold rail companies like Norfolk Southern accountable. But let's actually get into the details on that. So Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg continuously downplayed the situation until finally demanding accountability and greater safety regulations from Norfolk Southern. I mean, asking them politely to have different policies in place to prevent train derailment, I guess it's nice to ask, but you need actual rules that are like implemented and enforced by the government. So Norfolk Southern did take some accountability and is the only train company or rail company to improve some of their safety regulations. They said that the environmental monitoring by the state and federal agencies show that the air and water in East Palestine is safe. That's what they say. Obviously, the local community did not take what Norfolk Southern had to say at face value. They're also backing programs to compensate medical costs and protect the drinking water. And the company in September said that it would start compensating homeowners near the site who had to sell their homes at a reduced value in the wake of the derailment.
Yeah.
Now, regulations for the rail industry as a whole, though, remain largely unchanged. Despite safety upgrades, the number of freight train accidents actually rose last year. So according to supply chain risk analysis firm Everstream, they found that the 5 Class 1 freight railroads operating in the US, that includes Union Pacific, BNSF, CSX, Norfolk Southern, and Canadian National, reported 256 accidents on their main lines last year through October, representing an 11% increase from the same period in 2022, the firm said. And Congress isn't doing anything to help this matter either. They have failed to pass any legislation to prevent similar incidents from happening. And at this point, many people, including the residents of East Palestine, are just seeing Biden's visit as a campaign stop and nothing more.
Yeah, and I would just remind everyone, hopefully you don't need to be reminded, but when there was a debate about increasing regulations on these trains, the Republicans didn't support it.
No,
they supported Trump going and they support criticizing Biden for not going, but they don't actually want regulation on the industry. That shouldn't surprise anyone. They don't want regulation on any industry that's not Disney and maybe Bud Light. But again, it's just politics. They don't want anything significant to change. And also, really fast, I guess this is one of the areas where not being an expert really hurts my ability to understand the news, but how are there that many accidents on trains? It's literally on a track.
Well,
we gotta get it together with, it's not like it's flying through the air.
No, it's true, but let's say one of the parts that should have been replaced, but they didn't because they want to they want to cut costs, it malfunctions.
Yeah, I get that kind.
Yeah, that kind of stuff happens all the time.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
Of course, but companies aren't going to regulate themselves, especially when their #1 motive is to increase profits.
Yep.
So you need a government to step in. I don't want over-regulation, just common sense regulation to keep communities safe and to prevent train derailments as much as possible.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members, because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us. Become a Young Turk.